Welcome to week 3 class. I'm just going to post a couple videos to kind of highlight what it is I'm hoping you'll be considering and paying close attention to. This chapter is going to highlight or outline the processes of clinical assessment, diagnosis, and research in psychopathology. So clinical assessment refers to the systematic evaluation and measurement of psychological, biological, and social factors in people with psychiatric disorders so that we can get idiographic information that might be helpful in treatment planning. Diagnosis is the process of determining whether a particular problem that distresses the person meets criteria for a psychological disorder. So we use, as I mentioned before, the DSM-5, and this gives us, the Bible, for lack of better words, of our criteria to meet diagnosis. So this chapter is going to cover assessment techniques, like, for example, the clinical interview, behavioral assessments, physical examinations, psychological and neuropsychological testing, neuroimaging, psychophysiological assessment, and psychometric issues related to assessment. So there's all kinds of things related to that. It's also going to go through the concepts of reliability, validity, and standardization. So be sure you're paying attention to the materials as it talks about those concepts. Furthermore, I mentioned the DSM. The DSM is this chapter, I believe, is going to go through the history, the nature and the history of the DSM system and issues around using it for diagnosis and the classification system that it is in terms of how we do classify things. It's categorical, dimensional, and takes a prototypic approach. And so it'll talk about that in the chapter as well. And then finally, the chapter is going to talk about the research process in abnormal psychology. So this includes the concepts or the components included in research, such as the establishment of testable hypotheses, the protection of internal validity, the different types of research design, like, for example, case studies, correlational studies, group and single case experimental designs, genetic linkage and analyses, cross-sectional and longitudinal designs. So those are some of the research methods that's going to be covered in this chapter. So pay close attention to those things. We'll also, I think there's a section that talks about the role of cultural factors in the research, as well as psychopathology and ethics and that kind of thing. So we'll really be discovering what behaviors constitute problems, why people engage in behavioral disorders, like what's the etiology of a behavioral disorder or another disorder, what constitutes effective treatments, and there'll be some information on clinical trials as well. So welcome to week 3.